Hello, welcome back to Tactical Tuesday with Johnny Tiger on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. We have been discussing the topic today in our Krav Maga class. Uh, During the pandemic, we can't really meet up in the studio to do our fighting, sparring, and uh, hardcore training and all that stuff. So we do a lot of our classes over Zoom. So there's more time to talk and reflect on the basic principles and philosophy behind self-defense and martial art. So since we have been discussing this, I decided that I'm going to bring this onto today's episode because it is something very relevant and kind of important to keep in mind when you are training. And this applies, doesn't matter what you are training in. It doesn't even, specifically speaking, restrict itself to martial art or self-defense. It applies to a lot of different facets of what you want to do, physical activities, sports, other kind of uh, physical activities that you want to take part in. But of course, primarily it applies to self-defense, martial art, fighting. So, what makes a good fighter? In many years of training myself, being trained by others, I've had the fortune of being trained by some very good people, and the experience of training others. I have had the fortune of training some very good, outstanding people as well. What makes a good fighter? Generally speaking, in martial art, self-defense, fighting, combative, there's two kinds of people. I mean, there's obviously a lot more, but if we want to generalize, it boils down to two types. There's a type of people that no matter what they get into, they may get into Aikido today, Taekwondo tomorrow, Judo the next day, Krav Maga the next day. And they can clock in a lot of time, a lot of years. They can perfect all their techniques. They can perform every single technique to their satisfaction. But in the end, if we want to be cruel and realistic and honest, they are still just mediocre. Doesn't matter what they train in, doesn't matter how perfect their techniques are. And then there's the other extreme, there's the other type of people. These are like the freak of nature. They are like those high school star athletes, high school jocks that everyone hates so much. No matter what they get into, Taekwondo, Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Aikido, they don't even need to perfect their technique. They don't even need to pay attention in class. But somehow, for some reason, they excel at whatever they get into, no matter if it's sports fighting, competing, or standard self-defense. They are good at what they do. Some people will argue that, well, that's obviously the case of genetic. Some people are just born good at these stuff. Some people are not. And there's some truth to that. But today I'm going to show you guys the basic five pillars that will make a person a good fighter or make a person just a mediocre fighter, no matter in self-defense or martial art. And there are things, these are the five pillars anybody can work on. Anybody, not everyone's going to succeed, but you don't need to be good at all five of these things. From what we have seen, for the most part, people who are great are probably pretty decent at all five categories. But it doesn't take all five. For the most part, if you are really, really good at three out of the five, then you already can be a super good or a great fighter. in your own right. If you have 4 out of the 5, whoa, then now you're like a fantastic. You're like a master. You're like amazing, awesome, a fantastic. Like if you have 5 out of the 5, if you excel at all 5 of them, then you should be a professional fighter. You should be out there, be a professional soldier, doing this to make a lot of money. You shouldn't be watching this video. Okay, so what are the 5 pillars to making a good or great fighter? Number one, most obvious, power. Don't let people fool you into thinking that if you have the perfect technique, size doesn't matter. If you have the perfect technique, power doesn't matter. Believe me, it matters. This is why in UFC, in professional boxing, in professional judo, in a lot of these professional fighting where you have some of the best fighters, best sports fighters in those arts. Why there's such a thing as weight class? Because when you have two people with roughly the same skill, big guy going to swamp the little guy. Eh? It's very simple. Very simple. My right hand is probably as strong, if not stronger, than my left hand. Right? If my left hand push against my right hand, most likely my left hand is going to lose after a long struggle. But if I only use one finger in my right hand and I use the palm of my left hand, right hand is going to lose. Right? Even though it's still the right hand, it's still stronger than my left hand. But because left hand, the palm, bigger than the finger, yeah? Finger is not going to win this. Right? Between people, same thing. Power matters, size matters. You don't need to be the biggest guy on the block, but you don't want to be the smallest guy either. You don't need to be the strongest guy on the block, but you don't definitely don't want to be the weakest. This is one of the founding principle, core principle of Krav Maga training is to bring out the best in your strengths, to allow you to maximize your power. Because in Krav Maga, we believe that a lot of complicated techniques not going to do you any good if you don't have a lot of power. So if I can stand here and deliver this 1 inch punch perfectly, but I don't have a lot of power behind it, it's not going to do any good. The person that I hit will just laugh it off. But if I have a lot of power, then I don't need a fancy technique like a 1 inch punch. I can do a regular slap across the face and probably do a way more damage to the person than that little 1 inch punch, right? So, power is the first pillar of success for a good or great fighter. How do I stack up in that category in my own training? Well, I'm glad to say that I'm definitely not the strongest guy on the block, but I can usually hang with the strongest people. Uh, I am definitely I'm up there. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, Johnny Tiger in the power category is probably somewhere between an 8 or 9. I am under 200 pounds, but I can often, in the power division anyway, I can hang with people 250, 300 pounds. No problem at all. So, power is one of my strong suit, pun intended. Number two, speed. Speed is also very important because if you don't have good speed, then no matter what you do, it's going to be slow, it's going to be predictable. It doesn't matter how much power you have. If you can't hit fast enough and throw that punch fast enough to make it connect, then it's not going to work. Speed is also important when you need to run away, when you need to chase down somebody, when someone is swinging a knife in your face and you need to be able to get out of the way, lean out of the way, slap that knife out of their hand, or stick out the leg to trip them. Speed is very important in most of these activities. I'm going to demonstrate something for you guys. Okay? For you guys who can actually see the camera, I hope you can see me. Okay? I'm going to do a simple combo, fighting combo. It's going to be like this. Okay? For the people that can't see, for my blind viewers, that was jab, cross, hook, cross, knee, elbow, headlock, takedown. Okay? Let me do it at that speed again so you guys can see it. One more time. Now, was I hitting hard? Yes, definitely hitting hard. But would that combo be successful in sparring, fighting, competing, or stuff like that? Most likely not. Why? Because it's way too slow. For fighting someone who's trained, even sometimes people who are untrained, most likely I'm going to get this jab and this cross in there. No problem. But with the speed I was performing at, by the time I do this hook, they will have gotten out of the way or put up an arm and block this. So any time between my punches or kicks or elbow, there was too much of a gap for people to react. I didn't have speed. I have good form, pretty much. I have good power, pretty much. But I didn't have the speed to make this work. Especially if I was fighting for real, if I was fighting a person who's aggressive, a person who's trained. Now, if we do this combo again and we amp up the speed, the chance of that succeeding is drastically higher because the first four punches all come out within under 1.5 seconds. A lot faster than human eye can track them, a lot faster than the brain can react. And by the time the brain's reacting, oh, he's hitting me 4 times, the elbow and the knee and the takedown is in place. So this is why speed is important. If you have speed, and sometimes it can actually allow you to cut back on power a little bit, a little bit. Of course, then we have the debate, is it better to hit someone 1 time super hard, or is it better to hit someone 1, 2, 3 relatively hard, but not quite as hard? Well, that depends on what your goal is. It's okay to say you want to hit someone super hard with 1 punch, but what if you miss? Okay? At least if I go for 1, 2, 3, let's say 70% power, and I can connect with 2 of them, well, that's still 70 plus 70, that's 140. Uh, versus throwing one single 100% punch and miss, right? So speed is the second pillar of success for a good fighter. Now, when you ask me how is Johnny Tiger speed-wise, well, again, I'm not, I'm never the fastest person in the group, but I'm usually up there. If you do count of top three fastest in the program, I'm usually up there, either on the number two or number three. So as far as speed goes, I can with confidence say I'm somewhere between uh, 8 and maybe a 9, uh, probably closer to 8.5 for the most part. Number three, timing. Timing. Timing is a big, big part of what's going to make you, uh, that makes a difference between just being a mediocre fighter and being a super good fighter. Those super good fighters, they need that perfect timing. You need to know when to duck. You need to know when to back away. You need to know when to catch that leg when they kick you. You need to know when to put up your hand to block their punch. You need to know when to throw out your punch to do the most damage. As soon as they grab you, you need to know how to create that bit of opening by hitting the right place, and then within that several seconds that you create for yourself, do what you need to do. Okay? Timing, very important. My own Krav Maga coach, the first time we sparred, and it was full force, full contact, no hold back sparring. His timing was so perfect that he was able to tap me on the elbow at the full extension of my punch before I pull my hand back. Now, for those of you that have seen me punch, okay, my hand speed is pretty fast. For a person to be able to cap my elbow at that split second of my arm hit the forward stretch before I start to retract, because this was really amazing when you think about it. If you hit my elbow when my arm's on the way to retraction, then you are going to hurt your hand. But now my elbow is bent, I have good defense on my elbow. If you hit my elbow before my arm hit full stretch, again, you'll hurt your hand. You are not going to hurt me. So you have to be able to hurt me that way. You have to cap that moment, that split second, when my arm hit full stretch before it starts its way back. Okay? I'm going to do it. I'm just on a standstill. I'm not going to hit the target. And those of you who can see the camera, let's see if you can uh, see how hard that is to cap my elbow. Okay? This is me throwing my punch at 50% speed, 50% my normal speed. And I imagine for most people to be able to tap my elbow on full extension, it's already super hard. So if I go at full speed, okay, when I say full speed, I can throw out three, sometimes four punches when I jump up before I land. Jump, okay? I can throw out that many punches in a time before I land. So for a person to cap me on the elbow at that exact moment, that's timing. That's what makes a fighter very good, very devastating. Is when they can capitalize on that timing. The moment your opponent present an opportunity, the moment the elbow lift up, you hit them in the rib. The moment they even look like they're going to fire a punch, you fire before they do, right? The moment they look like they're going to rush in, you step out of the way. That's why timing is such a big part of what's going to make you good in martial art. Now, I will admit, being totally blind, I miss a lot of cues, and timing got to be probably my worst. Like, if out of the five pillars, you want to find a chink in my armor, timing is probably the worst for me. I would say that when it comes to timing, I am probably somewhere around a 6. I would say between a 6 and a 7. I'm not totally horrible, but because of the limitation of eyesight, limitation of not being able to hear in one ear, my timing is a little bit off sometimes. Number 4, the fourth pillar of making you a good fighter is non-telegraphic movement, the element of surprise. The element of surprise. It doesn't matter how big, how strong, how fast, how good your timing is. If every time you move, the person you're fighting know you're going to move, then you're not going to be super effective, right? Especially if that person also have some of these elements of success. Let's say you are big and strong and have good timing, but you're fighting someone who is big and strong and fast, uh, and 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 they don't have very good timing, but they don't have any telegraphic movement. Then you're going to be at a disadvantage because they can see it, they know it when you're going to hit them, but you never know when they're going to hit you. Okay? What do I mean by non-telegraphic movement? Let me do a quick demonstration. If I'm standing here in self-defense situation, which means my hands are up, I'm not going to be having my arms in front of my face like I'm going to a boxing match, right? Let's say I'm getting to a bit of an argument at the bar or on the street. Okay, I have my hand up like this. Hey, hey, man, it's okay, it's okay. I don't have any weapon. It's okay. Hey, 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 don't get aggressive with me, man. It's okay. If it's not worth it, let's not fight. Right? Now, if I telegraph my next move, is going to be something like hard punch. Yes, but what did I do? I twist my shoulder to wind up the fist and I drive it forward into their face. They can see that coming. On the camera, anyone can see that I intentionally hit the guy. Right? Now, using the same logic, I have my hand out like this, and the person is getting aggressive with me. I just smack them across the face like that. Okay? Is that as hard as a punch? Not quite. But would they be able to react to that? Would any camera be able to cap without a doubt say that I assaulted him first? Probably quite difficult. What if my opening attack or something like this? Right? I didn't even have my hand up. I just fire directly from the hip into their belly. Right? It's non-telegraphic movement like that that's going to make you be able to land your attacks, be able to get that first hit in a self-defense situation. We talked about it before. In self-defense, you don't always have to wait for them to hit you first. The moment you think they present a genuine threat to you, you can actually hit them. So how am I for non-telegraphic movement? Well, I think most of them can be the judge of that. Right? Most of you can be the judge of that. But I'm pretty decent at it. I would say on the scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably a 7. I'm probably a 7. Between a 7 and an 8. Between a 7 and an 8. And sometimes I sacrifice too much, uh, I telegraph a little too much in favor of that extra bit of power. But for the most part, I'm very good at not telegraphing what I'm going to do. The last pillar for a good fighter is endurance. And this is endurance, be able to endure whoever can fight the longest, whoever can take the most abuse, you're going to have that edge in a fight. Okay? And this one is actually quite important, right? So let's say you are a person, your speed is so-so, your power is so-so, but you have good timing, you have good endurance. What does that mean? That means you can actually stand there and let that person, the other person who has speed and power, and non-telegraphic movement, but they don't have good endurance, they don't have good timing. So you can actually stand here and let them pound on you until they run out of steam, and then you finish them off. Right? This is part of the reason why we spend so much time talking about body conditioning, because you can be fast and strong, but if the first time someone hits you in the face, you fall down crying, then no amount of self-defense or martial art is going to help you. You can be a fourth degree black belt, 5th degree black belt in whatever martial art of your choice. But if the moment someone kicks you on the leg, you start hopping around in pain, then you won't be very effective. You can have the 9th degree black belt, but if you start gassing out after exchanging punches for 5 or 10 seconds, you're not going to be very effective. And this is probably the bane. This is the downfall of a lot of older martial art teachers, martial art masters, martial art champions. Why they end up getting owned by younger, less experienced people, because they lose out on the endurance category. When you get older, your body can't take as much abuse. When you get older, you're probably a little bit out of shape, carrying a little bit extra weight around your middle. So even though you have fantastic technique, even though you might still have the power and a lot of the speed, and you will still have the timing, but your endurance not there. So all the person have to do is either wear you out or start exchanging hits with you. You hit them once, they hit you once. Eventually, you are going to lose because you don't have quite as good endurance. So this is why endurance is just as important as all the other power, speed, timing, non-telegraphic movements. So, quick recap: the 5 pillars of what's going to make or break a fighter. And remember, you don't need to have all 5. As long as you're good at 3 of them, then the other 2, you only need to be relatively fair. That will already make you really, really good. The 5 pillar is power, speed, timing, surprise, aka non-telegraphic movement, and endurance. How do we get those? How do we train those? Well, strength, obviously, weight training, push-ups, lots of push-ups, lots of core exercises, and stuff like that. That's pretty simple. Speed, right? Speed is a little bit harder to train. The best way I can think of for you to train speed is things like jump rope and juggling, and a lot of good uh, exercises where you have to complete a set of movements within a given time, such as burpees, uh, and jump squat, and jumping punches, and jump lunges, stuff like that. Timing is one of the harder ones to work on. Boxers work on the timing by hitting the speedball and try to work on that. And like I said, jump rope is good for that, and juggling is good for that. I showed a bit of juggling in the previous video and stuff like that. Jumping push-up, the kind of push-up where you do when you push up, you clap your hand before you land. That is fantastic for timing. Non-telegraphic movement. That one is probably the trickiest because it's hard to work on that without having someone spot for you, someone to tell you if you're telegraphed. So I think if you're on your own, then the best thing you can do is look in the mirror if you have eyesight. Look in the mirror when you throw your punch. Are you tensing up your shoulder? Are you twitching? Are you moving your body? Right? Things like that. If you're blind, then this is probably going to be the hardest uh, part for you to work on. How would you know if you are telegraphing or not? Uh, the best thing I can do is tell you to keep working on your speed and your timing, because when you have speed and timing, the non-telegraphic movement will actually be very, very easy to come by. So keep working on your speed and timing, and hopefully, most likely, your non-telegraphic movement, your element of surprise, will fall in place on its own. And endurance, of course, cardio, lots of cardio, and a lot of good old-fashioned body conditioning, punching. You don't need to knock yourself out, but occasionally put your fist into your belly. While I'm talking like this, I can punch myself in the belly. While I'm talking like this, I can punch myself in the arm. While I'm talking like this, I can smash my knuckles together. Okay, this is what comes from conditioning and endurance. Do I feel pain? Of course I feel pain. It hurts a lot. But it doesn't stop me from talking, and it's not going to stop me from fighting either. Thank you for checking out today's Tactical Tuesday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Wisdom Wednesday. For now, stay safe and have a good night.